Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. This is a dark and stormy night. Half moon is somewhere up there behind the the rain and the clouds. And tomorrow is our Katina festival. As people know, we have these glorious flower arrangements on the shrine and all the offerings that have been made by so many good-hearted people over the last few weeks gathered here in the temple. And we'll be having our online, socially distanced Katina festival tomorrow that people have been working very, very hard to prepare, organize, and they create a new script for. This is the first time we've ever had to do this, so this is a very different pattern than the other years. One thing I noticed with the big rainstorm this evening was that I felt I was not worrying about the alms round tomorrow. The one thing we don't have to be concerned about is the long Bindabata line in the and whether the rain will be there or not. So with these festival days, whether it's a Katina or other festivals like the Visakha Puja, full moon of May, or the Asala Puja, full moon of July, and so forth, it's very easy for us to get very involved in the details of the preparations, the working out of the routine, and what places we've got to put all the mats, or who's going to arrange the flowers, and all of the various and many duties that we have, and the kind of planning and organizing structure and so forth. And it's sometimes easy to forget what it is that the festival is for. What are we celebrating? And so I always like to put my mind onto the source of the particular festival and the occasion, what it's celebrating, why it's there in our calendar, and not to let the mind get completely taken up with all of the practical details and the mechanics of planning the ceremonies and the events and who's coming and how everything needs to be done. Oh, the Katina will be explained in a lot of detail tomorrow, and when we have the online event. So I won't go into a lot of the background to that this evening. But essentially, it's a festival that celebrates the symbiotic, the mutually supportive relationship between the lay community and the monastic community. And it's a way of rejoicing in that connection, how the lay community supports the monastic sangha, the monastic community, and in turn the monastic community supports the lay community, and how through the individual lifestyles, individual modes of activity and domains of responsibility and effort and attention, care, then we help each other along. It's a mutually beneficial system. It's a what they call a symbiosis, where two different say aspects of a living system support each other, and both are benefited by their mutual effort, their capacity to work together, and the effects of their working together, and what comes forth from those different elements working in harmony and effectively together. During today, there was a day-long event with the Amaravati Lay Buddhist Association, ALBA, And similarly, on the theme of Katina, and the title for the day was generosity and gratitude, and I felt that was a very skillful theme, and had so discussed it with the Alba people in advance some time ago, and I felt that was a very good way of, say, summarizing the essence of what Katina is about. What the informing spirit of the Katina festival is a combination of generosity and gratitude, and that the two elements, they are expressive of a very skillful way of relating to each other in the human world. The monastic community is grateful for the support, material support, and encouragement given by the lay community. The lay community is grateful for the example of the monastic community and the premises of a place like Amaravati, where usually in ordinary times people could come and practice. It's much more limited now because of the pandemic and the closed gate policy that we have to have in order to try and maintain the monastery as a virus-free environment. But even if lay people can't come onto the property in the ordinary way of coming to sit, meditate in the temple, join in with the pujas, coming to listen to Dhamma talks, or to stay here as a short-term guest and such like, still the place is here, and we've had a number of these online events, just like this evening, giving a Dhamma talk and having these posted on the website so that people can at least virtually come to the monastery, or have the monastery come into their home on a regular basis. There's 2 or 3 of these online events every week. Some of them live broadcast, some of them recorded, but there is a way that people can sustain the connection with the monastery. And so there's a gratefulness, a gratitude that the monastery is here, and us as a resident community can continue our practice, and that can be a beneficial influence on people's lives. And similarly, the acts of generosity, the lay people practice the amisa dana, the giving of material gifts. There's the large piles of offerings there. Can't be seen by the camera, but I can see over on the side of the temple, large piles of offerings that people have gathered together and made available to support the community here at Amaravati. So there's acts of generosity on that score, and also I would say generosity on the behalf of the monastic community to try to make the teachings available to our wonderful video and tech team that sets these things up, gets the cameras and the lights and the recording gear in order, so that that this kind of offering can be made. And so I feel that's also a kind of generosity that is not insignificant. It's very helpful and beneficial. But gratitude is relating to that sense of acceptance, that open-hearted quality of joyfully receiving whatever the universe provides, whatever the universe offers in any one moment. And so that it's a receptive, involutionary quality to gratitude, is that there's a receiving in that. And then its partner, generosity, is an offering. It's an expressive, outgoing quality, and that so that we are ready to share whatever we have. Generosity is a readiness to give, to share, and to not think of ourselves first, or to consider the welfare of other beings as equally important, if not more important, than our own welfare, and to be ready to share what resources we have, material resources, our time, our attention, our energy, with sincerity, to share those qualities to support others. So it's a little like the breath. The in breath and the out breath work together, and the in breath has that involutionary receptive quality, taking the air in to receive oxygen into the body to sustain the life of our bodies as human beings. And then the out breath is the expressive. So that's like a generosity, a giving forth. And I often like to explain the practice of loving kindness as having these two dimensions, and also symbolized by the breath. That loving kindness, we often think of loving kindness as mostly in terms of being expressive, like the say the outgoing benevolence, well-wishing of may all beings be well, may all beings be happy, may they be at ease, may they be free from suffering, and also the other aspect of metta, I feel, is not just wishing ourselves well, but the actual quality of open-heartedness, and that say what I call a radical acceptance, the openness of the heart, ready to say accept exactly how things are in this moment. And so I often like to talk about loving kindness as having these two dimensions, having a receptive and an expressive quality. So I feel that these two aspects, generosity and gratitude, similarly, they are ways of embodying that heart of loving kindness, that caring quality, both caring for this being, caring for other beings, and say an outgoing benevolence, but also a quality of receptivity, a radical acceptance of the way things are. Also, I feel that it's good to reflect on what are the sources, what it really is the source of generosity. Where does that come from, and what's the source of gratitude? And if you reflect on that and you ponder that, I feel it's really the Dhamma itself, which is the source of generosity. That it's that quality of fullness of being that. Say that when we awaken to the Dhamma within our own hearts, that the heart that knows the Dhamma, that embodies the Dhamma, is ready to share. It's not seeing in terms of self-centered views, of conceit or of self-importance, but rather it's a way of expressing that quality of puna in Pali, or purna in Sanskrit, that quality of inner completeness. And because of that sense of completeness, you're ready to share whatever you've got, because how can the Dhamma be diminished? That sense of a fullness of being is not dependent on our own sort of personal energy resources or the objects that we have, but rather it's that quality of the fundamental nature of our lives, I would say. Similarly, with gratitude, that I would say that the basis of gratitude is also that quality of Dhamma itself, to be grateful that this is the way things are, to open the heart to the way nature is, and that I feel that the quality of gratitude, that sense of appreciation, gladness of heart, is in a way the heart accepting, acknowledging and delighting in the way nature is. On this note, I was also reflecting earlier today how there's this really interesting passage in the suttas where the Buddha's speaking just after the time of his enlightenment, and it's while he's still in the area of Bodh Gaya, and it describes his own inner ponderings. And I think maybe it's in the Mahavagga, in the Vinaya scriptures. I'm not absolutely sure where you'd find it. But it's shortly after the Enlightenment, and the Buddha is contemplating the fact that he didn't have a teacher, and he's cast his vision around the world, and to look through the different qualities of beings alive in the world, and he realizes, I'm the only enlightened being in the world. I'm the only arahant in the world. and nobody is my teacher. So I've got nobody to look up to. I've got nobody that I can pay respects to. And then then, as it says in the scripture, it says a person lives unhappily who has nothing to look up to, has no one to respect or no one to look up to. And then he reflects, oh, but I have the Dhamma that I can look up to. I can respect, I can respect, I can revere, I can honor the Dhamma. Yes, that's what I can look up to. And so I've always been very touched by that particular passage, and thought that's very beautiful. That sense of, one lives unhappily who has nothing to look up to, and there's a beautiful humility there as well. And so that I feel that's also, say, that quality of gratitude and appreciation, reverence is sort of essentially for the Dhamma, and is in a way it's also an expression of our own inner nature. As I like to reflect, the heart is Dhamma, the mind is Dhamma. It's not a person. It's we get caught up in habits of self-view. We say, I'm a man, or I'm a woman, I'm British, or I'm French, or I'm German, or American, or Thai, or whatever. And we latch our attention onto these personal qualities. But the more that the practice is developed, the more it's recognized that the mind in its essence is Dhamma, that every aspect of the body and the mind is part of the natural order. And when we consider nature, what nature is, you can also consider nature is Dhamma. The Pali word Dhamma Jati means born of the Dhamma, and in the Thai language, that's the very word they use for nature itself. So that say consideration of the fundamental nature of the heart is Dhamma itself. It's not to be inflated or exaggerated. I am the Dhamma. That's what I am, as a sort of massive ego trip. A kind of mega conceit, but rather to consider, well, what aspect of the body and mind is not a part of nature? Well, I can't find anything. Every aspect of the body and the mind, mundane or transcendent, these are all aspects of nature, and Dhamma is nature. Therefore, the mind is Dhamma, and so that. Not to grasp that again from an egotistical or conceited point of view, but what that does is then it changes the way we think of this life, how we think of what we are, and it helps the experience of living to be seen from a nature-centered point of view rather than a self-centered point of view. Another thing to consider, the relationship of gratitude and generosity and how they function together. One important thing to bear in mind is that none of us would be here, I would say, if it wasn't for the chemistry between those two qualities. In particular, with the history of this community, and specifically Luang Por Sumedho. And as probably many of you know, maybe some of you don't know, the history of how he started taking responsibility for teaching. It was after he had been a bhikkhu for about 5 or 6 years. He became a bhikkhu in 1967. And then was training with Ajahn Chah for several years before many other Westerners showed up. But by 1973, 74, there was quite a steady stream of foreigners arriving at Wat Pah Pong, hearing of Ajahn Chah's reputation and coming to practice with him. And more often, the young Ajahn Sumedho was brought in to translate and to help give guidance in meditation and Dhamma teachings to the newly arrived Westerners, most of whom couldn't speak any Thai. And then as the population of the Prafarang, the Western Sangha, was increasing, 1 year, and I think it was about 73 or 74, then Ajahn Chah suggested that Ajahn Sumedho take the Westerners off to Wat Tham Sang Phet, the Tham Sang Phet monastery, in Amnatcharan. So the monastery where Luang Por Tun, who spent the rains retreat here last year, the monastery where he was the abbot. And so he suggested to Ajahn Sumedho, take the other Westerners off to Tamsangpet, and you can practice together with them there. So that was the first time Ajahn Chah sort of put him in a position of leadership with other Westerners. And as Luang Por Sumedho tells the story, as many of you will probably have heard him describe, how immediately the rains retreat was completed, he scuttled off to central Thailand, and then accepted an invitation to go to visit the holy places in India. So he was very eager to get away from all these other crazy Westerners and to not be in the position of having to teach and take responsibility and to guide these young aspirants. And so he was traveling in India. He was with two other monks, Venerable Dhammaguto, Chris Cook, and Venerable Bankau, Ajahn Bankau, Dhammaguto is a British monk, Ajahn Bankau is a Laotian monk. So the three of them were traveling in India to the holy places. And then during that time, and I've never really heard Luang Por Sumedho describe exactly where it was or sort of how it took shape along the way. But he's told the story many times that while he was in India, he was overcome by this waves of gratitude and intense appreciation for what he had received from Luang Por Chah, and that he reflected on how his whole spiritual training, all that he knew about the Dhamma, all he knew of how to meditate, or how to be a monk, and how to embody the Buddha's teachings, all of that had really come from Ajahn Chah. And so this realization brought a tremendous feeling of gratitude and appreciation to a very intense degree. So he reflected on that, and then also, as he describes it, he sort of considered and remembered the attitudes of mind he'd had while trying to escape from Tamsangpet and not wanting to take responsibility for other Westerners, and he saw, what am I running away from? Why am I so reticent to take that responsibility? And I've received so much from Ajahn Chah, and he never held back. He was, even if I was very difficult or challenging or gave him a lot of headaches, he never resisted or resented being available for me. So the result of that gratitude was that Ajahn Sumedho, when he got back to Thailand, went to Ajahn Chah and paid his respects to him and offered him his life. As I said, Tawai Chiwit, as they say in Thai language, Tawai Chiwit. He said, "I give you my life. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it." So I'm not going to follow my own impulses or my own preferences. I give my life to you, and so please, whatever you'd like me to do, however you'd like me to use my time, please just let me know. And that was a very generous offering. Extraordinarily powerful and generous offering. And as Ajahn Sujito put it in describing this a while ago, it's not recorded how Ajahn Chah responded. It was probably just with the Northeast Thai, which is it's actually in the Lao English dictionary, that particular sound. And it can mean yes or no, or I hear you, or I understand what you mean. Or any variation along that is sort of duly noted is maybe a good way to express that. Is that so? Or I hear what you say, or okay. Yeah, anywhere on that spectrum. So we are here, and Amaravati exists, and I would say every single one of us is here because of that gesture, because of that offering, because Ajahn Sumedho decided to offer his life to Luang Por Chah. Then a little while later, a year or two later, then the invitation from Bungwai village came from the villagers there for the Westerners to settle in the forest just outside the village, and that's how the International Forest Monastery, Wat Pa Nanachat, began. And Ajahn Sumedho settled there, and a group of Western monastics gathered around him, and the rest is history, indeed. So that was 1975 that Wat Nanachat began. And so personally, I feel tremendous gratitude on account of that undertaking, that availability that Luang Por Sumedho made, that he is available to teach, available to take responsibility, available to help these sort of confused and crazy collection of foreigners to gather together and to craft their lives into the mode of Dhamma Vinaya, and to train these chittas, train these hearts and minds to awaken to Dhamma, to awaken to the fundamental reality of the way things are. And so I feel an incredible gratitude to have been on the receiving end of that generosity, and not to make people feel that they should be indebted. But I do feel that this is a good opportunity to bring these things to mind, that this place doesn't exist just on its own. It's like you come up St. Margaret's Lane and boom, Amaravati is here. Well, it's here because of causes. It's not just here because it's here because it's here, but this place exists, and this event this evening exists because of a vast array of causes, and a lot of that based on these very, very skillful qualities that particularly these qualities of gratitude for the teaching, gratitude for the opportunity to practice, and then the acts of generosity of giving Ajahn Sumedho ready to give his time, his attention, his care, his skill, his knowledge to be of benefit to others, and the development of Wat Nanachat and then these branches around the world have largely come forth from that gesture. Though in terms, again, exploring the spirit of katina and generosity and gratitude, then how can we develop those qualities? We can see, these are very wholesome, very noble, very beautiful, very admirable. But as we all know, you can't just decide to be generous, or okay, I'm going to be grateful now. That's a noble aspiration. We can say, yes, I recognize this is wholesome, but just recognizing that something is wholesome and good, it doesn't necessarily mean that we can conjure it into being. We can take particular practices or have an aspiration to, say, bring to mind, I would like to be more grateful. I can see that I'm often, I have feelings of privilege or entitlement, or I'm ungrateful, I have a lot of expectations, or I'm not generous. I always seem to be thinking of myself, putting myself first, and considering how I can get the biggest share, or what about me, and do I get the thing that I want? And so we can recognize that it'd be good to be more generous, be good to be more unselfish, and to have more gratitude. But just in the way that I'm using those phrases, just describing those those aspirations, that I need to be more grateful, or I need to be less selfish, I need to be less entitled. When we pick up like a noble intention, a skillful quality, it's very easy for that to get woven in with self-view and the habits of bhavatanha, the desire to become, or vibhavatanha, the desire to get rid of. I need to get rid of my selfishness. I need to get rid of my habits of entitlement, or I need to get rid of my complaining and criticizing attitudes. I need to become more unselfish. I need to be more generous. I need to be more thoughtful of other people. All of that I need to, I should, I must, I've got to get rid of. All of that I-making and mind-making, what that does, and probably most of us are familiar with how this works, is that those noble intentions, that sincerity, gets co-opted by self-view. I've got to be more generous. I need to be less selfish. I've got to get rid of my sense of privilege and my assumptions of superiority and my lack of gratitude. I have to get rid of that. And what happens with that is then that those noble intentions get distorted and end up becoming a source of suffering, a source of alienation and self-criticism, and the inner agitations of say never being able to do it well enough, never being good enough, worrying about what other people think of us, or the noblest and most sincere of efforts in this way can end up producing more and more dukkha. And again, if those of you who've listened to many of Luang Por Sumedho's Dhamma talks or read his books over the years, you'll see how over and over again he points to these two qualities, the vibhavatanha, the desire to get rid of, and bhavatanha, the desire to become. These are the very, very often the main causes of difficulty and dukkha in the mind of a meditator, because they can disguise themselves as, noble activity. They can disguise themselves as following the teacher's instruction. I do need to get rid of my chattering thoughts. I do need to get rid of my lust and my fear and my anger. I do need to. So it can feel as though and sound as though we're following the instructions, but on account of them being, say, infused with the habits of I, me, and mine, self-view and conceit, then necessarily, if effort is say colored or influenced in that way, necessarily it will lead to dukkha. That effort can't lead to liberation. So that it makes meditation and our spiritual practice, the development of the sila and skillful qualities, or trying to be generous, or trying to be grateful, it produces more dukkha. And so that is very painful and frustrating, disappointing, and sad. So that in this respect, it's helpful to see, well, how can generosity be developed free from self-view, or how can gratefulness be developed free from self-view, and what are skillful ways that might be done. So there are various different approaches that one could take, but what I like to do myself in many areas of practice, in terms of skillful qualities, rather than the sort of raising up the ideal of I need to be more concentrated, or I need to be wiser, or I need to have more of this or less of that, I try to bring the attention to that which gets in the way. So rather than thinking I need to be more kind, I'll bring my attention to what are the feelings of unkindness, or rather than in this respect, I need to be more generous. What does stinginess feel like? What does selfishness feel like? So I like to, and I find it's very helpful to bring the attention to that which is obstructing or confusing or getting in the way of those wholesome qualities. And in a mysterious fashion, it seems to, for me at least, it seems to be easier to not get caught in self-view when bringing attention to the obstacles or obstructions and that felt sense. So you're not starting from the ideal of how you should be, but you're starting from the felt sense, the actuality of that which is arising in the heart, the feelings of being ungrateful or being selfish or self-concerned. So, in this respect, so what I like the way I like to practice with this is to set an intention. So, if you really want to see how the mind is inclined towards selfishness and seeking self-benefit, or being ungenerous, or the various kinds of giving that the Buddha described. There's sort of stingy giving, as like that you're going to throw something away anyhow, so you might as well give it to someone because you were going to discard it, or giving with a an expectation of getting something in return. That's sort of qualified giving, or the kind of giving that's with an expectation or a rider on it. And then the third kind of giving is what they call Rajadana, or regal giving, giving without having any expectation in return. But even Rajadana, even that kind of very noble giving, that just giving something that is precious to you and not really expecting anything in return, it can still be, I'm expecting something in return. Or sorry, I'm not expecting anything in return. I'm just giving this, and whether anything comes back or not is I'm indifferent to that. So that whatever the kind of giving that one is considering, to see where does stinginess arise, or what does that feel like, of that feeling of, well, I don't want to give this away because I really like this, or well, I'll only give so much because I want to keep some for myself, or what will I do if I haven't got any of this left, or and it's not just material things. It can be a stinginess with giving our time or our attention. I don't want to bother talking to that person. Don't want to bother with being available to do this. I don't want to volunteer for this particular work task. I'm not going to go to the work meeting because I don't want to be bothered with having to be told what to do. When those, I'm not reading anybody's mind or finding fault with anyone in particular, just sort of randomly inventing ways that the mind is selfish or stingy and puts me first. To set the intention, whatever kind of stinginess or selfishness arises during the day, notice that. To set the intention at the beginning of the day, when to be so clearly and consciously, say, resolving. Okay, during today, whenever there's a selfish feeling, a me first feeling, I don't want to bother with that. I don't care about what the expectations are. I'm not going to bother. To notice that. To set the intention to track every time the mind moves in that direction. So if you do this as a sort of serious practice, it can be very revealing. If you just aim at one particular mental habit, it can be really astonishing how many times during the course of a day those particular feelings arise, and it can be startling, embarrassing even. Wow, this is happening over and over and over again. But it's helpful to see that habit. If you recognize, okay, that's something I want to work on, I want to cultivate more generosity, to spot those times where the ungenerous, selfish attitude arises. And then whenever it arises, then to notice how it takes shape in the mind. And then to, in a sense, catch it, and then replay that clearly and consciously. Like, I don't want to go, I'm not going to bother, I don't care about that. My time is, how I spend my time is up to me. So if that's what takes shape in the mind, to say, I don't care about what I'm supposed to be doing. What I do with my time is up to me. So there. And or that I don't want to give this. I don't want to give this away because I want to keep some for me, because life will be bad if I don't have a supply of my favorite thing, and that's no good. Whenever you catch the attitude of mind like this and replay it clearly and consciously, my experience is that as you start to think those thoughts and sort of say it out loud to yourself, by the time you get to the end of the sentence, the attractiveness or the reality of it has fallen apart. It's almost like you invariably start laughing at yourself, or like it just falls to pieces, or you can't even finish the sentence because it's so obviously ridiculous. Like, I'm not going to give this away because I'm more important than you. And it's ridiculous. And that absurdity is revealed to our own intuitive wisdom. It's not like I'm telling myself it's absurd, or I'm coming up with an idea that this is ridiculous, but rather that clear seeing of that very selfish, childish, and limited attitude when it's seen in the sort of right under the spotlight, like we have this evening. You get it right front center and shine the spotlight of satipanya, mindfulness and wisdom on it. Then it can't hold up. If it's off in the edges of our attention, if it's sort of back in sort of behind our range of vision, then it can be convincing. Like, yeah, well, I do want some. What will I do if I haven't got any of that? Or I don't want to waste my time on that person. I can't be bothered. If it's just sort of out of the range of vision, then that can seem very convincing and real and valid. If you get it front center and say, I don't want to be bothered, I don't care about that person, you say it out loud, not to be shaming yourself or creating more of an attitude of self-view around it, just letting those words, that train of thought be known, and then it dissolves by itself. It falls away. You don't have to let go of it. It's not like you're developing generosity instead of being selfish. It's rather that the selfishness can't stand up, can't hold together in the light of wisdom. It can't sustain itself. It's like it falls apart on its own. It's like the autumn. The leaves change and fall off the trees because that's the nature of the season. That the leaf doesn't have to do any conscious letting go. It's just the nature of the leaf changes. The stalk separates from the twig, and the leaf drops off. So this kind of letting go of selfishness is not really a letting go. It's just a natural falling away that's caused by that the impact, like the winds of autumn and the change of the season causes the leaves to drop off, so that selfishness and ungratefulness they fall away on their own. In reflecting on gratitude, then I would say it's exactly the same way. When you find that the mind is say in an ungrateful state, if you have strong habits of ingratitude, if you say that you feel the world owes you something, that it's up to the world to make you happy, and if you're not happy, it's the fault of the world. It's the fault of the Ajahn. If you were a better teacher, I wouldn't be suffering. So my suffering is your fault. Or if my parents had done a better job of bringing me up, then I wouldn't suffer. So that my parents they owe me. I'm unhappy because of them. So these are sweeping statements or making broad generalizations, but it's easy for us to when the mind really buys into those sort of self-centered and ungrateful attitudes, then there can be this sense of entitlement. It's I'm owed this, I should have this, and so that when the heart abides in those states and that kind of lack of gratitude, that ungratefulness, a sense of entitlement, or that you feel like you're owed, it's a really joyless state. And even if you manage to get the things that you think that you are owed, it's still joyless. It still doesn't really satisfy you. It's still very, very painful. So in developing gratitude or considering the quality of gratitude, I feel it's helpful to look at that again in exactly the same way. That sense of if there is that sense in the heart that you owe me, or that that I deserve better treatment, or this person is really letting me down, or they shouldn't act in that way. It's really hurtful to me. It's really disappointing. And that it might be that someone's behavior is upsetting, or that it is unskillful, but it's still up to us how we handle it. If we take hold of that action or the speech of another person, or the government, or our parents, and and we are born into that, we take hold of that and say, make that our refuge, then even if we have got a good reason to complain or criticize, there is some unskillful behavior has been there. Still, we are making ourselves suffer, and the other person is suffering on account of that unskillful quality as well. So you've got two beings suffering. So that if we change our attitude, you're not pretending that you're glad that people have mistreated you or have given you a poor upbringing, but you're recognizing in this moment it's entirely up to this being what is done with that experience. And so that with gratitude, it's particularly important not just to be grateful for the sort of the blessings, the kind of having the Dhamma teachings from Luang Por Luang Por Sumedho, and the Buddhist teachings that we've inherited and are so available to us nowadays. It's not just a gratitude for the pleasant and the delightful, the immediately beneficial, but when we want to develop gratitude in a full way, to look at those, particularly the difficulties and challenges that life presents, and to consciously cultivate an attitude of gratefulness to even the difficulties and the adversities of life. One of the statements that Luang Por Chah would very often make, and I feel this is a very good expression of this principle of cultivating a profound gratitude. So that whether it's a pleasant experience or painful experience or neutral experience, there is that openness of heart and a readiness to receive. He would say, everything is teaching us. If we let it, everything will teach us. The pleasant, the painful, the wanted, the unwanted, everything will teach us if we let it. So if you're wise, everything will teach you. So not just an Ajahn sitting on a Dhamma seat and giving a talk as a sort of formal or a sort of labeled teacher, but the pain in your knees will teach you. The struggle that you have with your fellow monastics or living in the room next door, that will teach you. Your doubts about your own meditation and your ability to calm your mind, those doubts will teach you. COVID-19, the pandemic, the limits that are set upon us by the pandemic, that will teach us. If you get the disease and you have the breathing difficulties and the symptoms advance to a great degree, so that there's a profound illness and sickness and so forth, that can teach us too. And so that this is such a central theme of Luang Por Chah's teaching, and I feel it's really one of those things that if we take it to heart, it makes such a difference. So with developing gratitude, I would say the first part would be noticing when you're ungrateful and you're feeling entitled or demanding, or that the world owes you. That's sort of part one, and recognizing that and letting that fall away, and then recognizing how does it feel when that falls away. There's a quality of openness and attentiveness and peacefulness that's there, but to take it even a step further, to in a sense deepen and amplify, strengthen that quality of gratitude. To take even the most difficult and challenging aspects of our life, illness, feeling rejected, or feeling that you're not good enough, or you're being criticized. You put your effort into a particular project or an undertaking, decorating the temple, or making a fantastic flower arrangement, and then you put hours and hours and hours into doing the flower arrangements, and then someone comes along and says, "Oh, so is that supposed to look like that?" Or I'm not criticizing these flower arrangements at all. I'm just using this as a random example. So from your own side, you might be very pleased with how it's turned out. Somebody can come along and say, "Oh, Is it supposed to look like that? And the the experience of being criticized or failing, that will teach us, and so that if we really take this principle to heart, then it changes the way that the heart, the mind relates to the field of experience, and this is so valuable. It makes such a difference. And again, as Luang Por Chah would say, like and dislike are of equal value. Chop, my chop, tau tau gan. Liking and disliking are of equal value. If you're praised, you succeed at something, you're asked to do a particular task, or you sit down in meditation, your mind goes very clear and is very focused. The work that you do, people say, "Oh, this is so wonderful. These flowers are fantastic. This is beautifully done." There's a sweetness to success, to being praised, to being approved, to being loved, to the things that you do coming together in a well integrated and harmonious way. There's a sweet feeling that comes with that. So over and over and over again, Ajahn Chah would say, don't attach to happiness. Rather, when there's that sweet feeling of being approved or being successful, things going well, oh, this is a sweet taste. What can be learned from this? What will this teach me? Similarly, when things fall apart, you sit down to meditate, your mind is all over the place, you're falling asleep, and you're sort of shuttling between being asleep and being enraged with anger and lust and fear and anxiety. You take up some particular task, you have responsibility for some job, and then it all goes pear-shaped, things go terribly wrong, you end up wasting a huge amount of money, and people really are upset with you. And that's a bitter taste. That's really painful. But rather than again letting that bitterness be something that you take refuge in or buy into, it's like, oh, what can be learned from this? This is the bitterness of being rejected, or having a mind that's all over the place, or taking up a task that fails and is a disaster. What can be learned from this? And so that if we change the attitude in that way, and not superficially, but to the degree possible, really taking that to heart, then even those painful feelings of like I'm rejected, or I'm a failure, or I've got terrible doubts, that can be a real source of wisdom, a real source of blessing, and in that, there's a freedom from self-view, and reckoning, this is what a failure feels like. This is what a chaotic mind feels like. And in that clear seeing, there is no creation of I or me or mine around that. Here is a busy mind that's chaotic and confused and all over the place. That's what a crazy mind feels like, filled with fear and lust and anxiety, aversion. It's like this. And the mind, that which knows a confused and agitated mind, is not confused or agitated. It's not identified with that. So those qualities are there, but they're known as aspects of the person that arise and pass away. That which knows the person isn't a person. The heart is taking refuge in that quality of knowing, that puru, that awakened, aware quality, the vijja, as it's said in Pali. That the heart is embodying that quality of vijja. Similarly, when things go well and you're praised and things are harmonious and sweet, then there similarly is that recognition of what can be learned from this is that this is what sweetness tastes like. It's not a person. It doesn't belong to a person. That which knows sweetness isn't sweet. That which knows integration is not integrated. It's beyond the world of things coming together. That quality of knowing, it transcends even goodness. As Luang Por Chah would say, people want to let go of evil and cultivate the good, but that which is beyond good and evil, people don't know about, people don't understand. So that when we change the attitude to events of our life, what occurs in our field of experience, whether it's a beautiful, bright, sunny day or a dark and stormy night, then the heart is undisturbed or is unconfused by those particular changes. It doesn't hold on to a preference of one over the other, but it instead takes refuge in that quality of awakened awareness, that quality of knowing. And so that this change of heart is a way of really making the very best use of our time, our effort, our energy. We do the best we can with our meditation, with our practice, with our behavior, with the work that we do. We do the best we can. But if that's within the framework of what can I learn from this, then there's a gratefulness, there's a gratitude for everything. The heart is embodying gratefulness. That even when things go really bad, and it's like, well, this is interesting. I can learn what a disaster is like, or when you have an illness, then this is helpful. I can appreciate how to deal with sickness and pain and aches and fevers. This is good too, and so that that quality of gratitude, of gratefulness, then it's the kind of abiding presence. Nothing can go wrong with our life if we change the attitude to that everything is teaching us. Then we are grateful for all the circumstances. Earlier today at the Alba event, I was quoting, there's a line from As You Like It, the play by William Shakespeare called As You Like It. And one of the characters called Duke Senior is his name. He's been usurped. His younger brother has kicked him out of the dukedom, has taken over, and the elder brother is exiled into the forest and is having to just live out in the wilds with a few companions. And so he sort of stepped down from this rich, luxurious, comfortable life in his palace and living out in the woods. And so it's sort of brought to his attention, or the discussion is, this must be really difficult, must be terrible for you to have such a come down from living in luxury and wealth and comfort. And he makes this very beautiful speech where he says, sweet are the uses of adversity. It's a useful phrase to bear in mind. Sweet are the uses of adversity. And then he goes on to say that, like the toad, ugly and venomous, yet carries a jewel within its head. So in those days, they used to believe that certain species of toad actually had inside the skull, there was a jewel, that like a precious gem inside the head of a toad. So just like a toad, ugly and venomous, it has a jewel within its head. So too, living out in the forest, this has its blessings. And he goes on to say how the running of the streams across the stones, there are sermons in the stones. If you hear the water running across the stones of the stream, then it's like hearing a sermon, hearing a Dhamma Talk, or the wind through the leaves. It's like there are songs in the leaves. There's the beauty of the natural world. So even though he's lost everything, he's sort of been kicked out of his own domain and lost all his sort of wealth and power and position and so on, he's still able to see, well, actually, this is really quite delightful. Being in exile, being in the forest, having lost everything, well, this is good too. So I feel that sense of gratitude and appreciation, readiness to learn from everything, it's a great source of peace. That you're not waiting for the difficult things to be over so you can be happy. You're not waiting for the Dhamma Talk to finish so you can move your legs or to get to the bathroom, or you're not waiting for the pandemic to be over and so that you'll be able to get back to normal. You're not waiting for the katina to be over so that we can have a quieter routine and so on. That rather the heart can be open to even the greatest of adversities, and is ready to learn from that, to not argue against that, because the heart that is ungrateful is always disappointed, even with even with the delightful. It's not quite good enough, or you should have got more of it, or how can you keep it? It's always abiding in disappointment and criticism. So I feel that taking the spirit of Katina in this way, and to consciously make these efforts to change our view, to change the way that the world is held, and to firmly establish this intention to see the world in this way, to see how we can let everything be our teacher, and then rather than just taking my word for it, or just sort of, okay, that's the instruction, I should do that. Most importantly, see the results of that. When with that change of heart is actualized, what happens? How is the world changed? How do you relate to praise and success? How do you relate to failure and criticism? How do you relate to the whole spectrum of experience? What happens? How is that felt? What's the effect of that? And then seeing and knowing that effect directly, let that be what informs you, let that be what guides you. Then you don't have to take it from any external source, but you know, if you let everything be your teacher, then the world is a delightful place. You never feel let down, you never feel disappointed, there's never anything missing, nothing ever goes wrong in any radical and absolute way. Things might go in a way that you didn't expect or is not convenient, but the heart knows there's nothing absolutely and fundamentally wrong. It's like this, and no matter how painful or difficult things get with our state of health or whatever, then if that attitude is sustained, what can be learned from this, then there's a great peace, a great ease, a great freedom that comes from that. So I offer these words for consideration this evening.